I'm blessed to be back with you again. I say again, it has been 2 years since I've been here, so I may be new to some of you. And for that reason, if you'll bear with me, I would like to do a short review of what my focus in life is all about and what all of my talks are really based on, which is something I call living life in the divine flow. Some of you may, especially those who have read any of my books, may recall that my definition for the flow is an underlying current that is continually guiding you towards the effortless fulfillment of your heart's desires. I'll say that again. There's an underlying current in your life that is continually guiding you towards the effortless fulfillment of your heart's desires. Now, there's two things I want to point out about that definition. First of all, you notice that I said heart's desires. I didn't just say desires. There's a lot of desires we have in our head, things we want, cars, boats, a bigger house. But generally speaking, underneath each of those desires, there was an underlying desire of the heart that motivated that idea in the first place. Your heart is your spirit, and your spirit is actually in this life not to so much accumulate things as it is to have experiences of life, experiences of freedom, of creativity, of love. And it is to those experiences we are being guided, not necessarily, maybe, but not necessarily to what you think you want in your head. The goal, of course, being to have your head and your heart aligned, and then you'll find yourself fulfilling almost everything you want effortlessly. I also want you to notice that in that definition, I use the word guiding. You are guided to the fulfillment of these desires. It's not something you can achieve just by sitting around on your couch, twiddling your thumbs, waiting for God to hand you your desires on a silver platter. You're really required in life to take some action, but we're talking about divinely guided action. And so the way I like to picture the whole process working is like a literal flow. I like to picture your desires as destinations that lie down a stream. And you want to get down that stream towards your dream. So you're in your little boat, which is really just your body, mind, and spirit, using the oars of your free will to get down that stream towards your dream. But you do not have to get there under your own power alone, do you? Because there's this current underneath your boat, this divine flow that is helping you get there. And it helps you get there in what I just mentioned, by guiding you there, by telling you your next right step to take. And when you recognize and cooperate with that guidance, I call that rowing with the flow. And when you row with the flow, you find yourself living a more effortless, graceful, easy, fulfilling, satisfying life. Now, I had been teaching these principles for a couple of years in the mid-90s when I had a still small voice experience. I've had lots of what I consider to be inspired thoughts occur to me, but not so many actual still small voices where it is a thought, but it seems to be directed at you. It's very succinct, and the best word to say what it is like a voice. And so I was leaving church one day, and I was driving home, and I don't know what lesson I was teaching that day. It might have been about this. But all of a sudden, I heard, Steve, every single principle you've been teaching for the last few years is contained in the song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat. And it was such a voice experience, I kind of like, what? Every single principle you've been teaching about living life in the divine flow is represented by the song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat. And that was the end of the voice. So I'm driving along thinking, okay, let's see, the song, we all know that song, right? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. I said, that's right. Okay, there's a stream. You need to row with that stream. It's about taking divinely guided action. It's not about just drifting through life. You want to row gently. You don't want to force things to go the way you think they should go because you don't always know what's best. You want to row merrily because, among other things, that positive attitude keeps you open and receptive to divine guidance. But then we get to that enigmatic phrase, life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Now, some of you have probably already jumped ahead and assumed that what I'm going to be talking about today is that all of life is an illusion. There's not really anything happening out here. It's sort of a mutually agreed upon hallucination of our divine spirits to create a world of contrasts, a world of opposites, a world of separation, so that we may learn and grow through that combined experience. That's probably true. But that is way too esoteric a topic for a song as simple as Row, Row, Row Your Boat, and for my mind to actually grasp. So I'm driving along and I'm thinking, there is another actual principle that's very important for living life in the divine flow, and it is well represented by the phrase, life is but a dream. And what I'm talking about is perception. Perception, your perception of reality. And your perception of things and your judgments of situations and your judgments of what you think is happening around you and to you can actually enhance or inhibit your ability to live life in the divine flow, to fulfill your desires effortlessly, and to live a more joyful, fulfilling life. Rather than just go on and on about that, if you don't mind, I would like to just read a few paragraphs to kind of set up this idea of perception. To say that life is but a dream is to say that what you consider to be reality may seem very real to you, but it may not seem as real to anyone else. This is because you instantly give meaning to every single circumstance that occurs in your life. You judge it and label it as good, bad, or indifferent. But the meaning you give to these circumstances is greatly influenced by your own personal history and belief system. Another person, looking at the same situation, may see an entirely different picture based on his or her own unique past. A little example of that, let's say there's a company that has layoffs. Well, most of the people are going to perceive that as a bad thing. Oh no, I'm getting laid off, what am I going to do? But there may be a handful of people who see it as a blessing. They may think, you know what, I make good money here, but I haven't been satisfied in this job for a long time, but the money was too great for me to take the risk to just quit, but now I don't have to quit. I've been let go, thank God. So, what's the reality there? Is the layoff a good thing, a bad thing? It depends on how you perceive it. Like a dream, then, each person sees what he or she chooses to see and interprets his or her vision the way he or she chooses to interpret it. This phenomenon of subjective reality is called perception. Perception is highly relative and easily subject to change. If you use your perception to hastily label an occurrence as bad, and then rashly act on that interpretation, you may miss the very opportunity that could lead you to your highest good and to the effortless fulfillment of your heart's desires. Let me give you a little example of that. I say little example, this is actually a long story, but it's a little in that it's kind of a minor miracle, but I don't know, I enjoy telling this story. In 2001, Carol and I lived in Dallas, Texas, and we wanted to visit her mother in St. Louis. Now, it's a long drive from Dallas to St. Louis. So we said, instead of trying to do that in one day, it's just so grueling, why don't we make a pleasurable trip out of this and divide it into 3 parts? Part 1, we would drive to Hot Springs, Arkansas from Dallas, which is only 5 hours away. Part 2, the next day we would get up and we would go dig in one of their open pit crystal mines. We love crystal digging. We've been to Hot Springs many times to do that. We've got so many crystals. We have countless crystals that are jewelry size. We have lots of handheld sizes, and we have some very large clusters and just large crystals themselves. We have so many. We use these crystals in our home as doorstops. That's how many we have. So we think, but we still enjoy doing it. Let's do a day of crystal digging, and then the following morning we'll get up and we'll go to St. Louis. Now, there's only one part of that plan that wasn't so ideal, and that is Carol really wanted to reach St. Louis, or that St. Louis area, in time to stop at a small village south of St. Louis called Kimmswick. And Kimmswick was a really old town established on the banks of the Mississippi River like in the 1700s by explorers. And it was had been turned into kind of an artist colony with arts and crafts shops and all the little cabins and houses. But there was a restaurant there that she really wanted to eat lunch at. It was a very famous restaurant, and so the idea was to get to St. Louis in time to eat lunch at that restaurant, but that was going to be pretty hard from Hot Springs all the way there by lunchtime. But anyway, that was the plan. So we begin our journey. First day, everything goes according to plan. We drive to Hot Springs, have dinner, go to sleep, get up the next morning. The next morning, we look out the window, and there's a slight mist coming down, a little bit of a drizzle. We're thinking, our first thought is, this can't be good. We're supposed to be, going out in the open pit mine, it's raining. But, let's reserve our judgment about this, and let's just go eat breakfast, which is the natural thing to do. It's what our inner guidance said do, of course, and our stomachs and our logic and every part of us said just eat breakfast. So we go across the street, and we're eating breakfast at this famous pancake restaurant. And while we were there, I swear, that mist turned into a monsoon. I mean, buckets and buckets of water came down out of the sky, so much so that people got out of their seats in the restaurant and went over to the windows to watch this rain come down. So we're sitting there thinking, okay, this was not the kind of flow we had in mind. This is way too literal a flow and going the wrong direction down on us. So we thought, well, what are we going to do? As we sat there finishing our meal, we got quiet enough to consult what are our feelings about this? What does our inner sense say to do? And really, what we were told to do and was just, that's it. Go check out of the hotel and leave. So we went back to the hotel, packed our bags, checked out, and then began to head out towards St. Louis a day early. Now, as we were heading out of town, Carol looked ahead and saw the strip mall approaching. We were approaching the strip mall, and in that strip mall there was a crystal shop that sold crystals. And we had never been there, but we had met the owner of that store before at a Unity church that we attended on one of our many visits to Hot Springs. And so we knew about it, and Carol says, oh, let's stop at that crystal shop. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, it's like 8 in the morning. It's not going to be open. And we know what crystals look like. We have thousands. But she said, no, I'd really like to stop there. You know, I sense that we should stop. Just stop. Let's go up to the door and just look in that crystal shop window. I said, okay. So we pull over, walk up to the window, start looking through, and spot some crystals and things. Oh, it's nice. Looks like a nice store if it were open. And then we saw some movement back there. And the owner of the shop was there early doing, I don't know what, business, inventory, bookkeeping. He sees us, and he comes over and opens the door and says, we're closed, but, you know, may I help you with something? And we reintroduced ourselves to him. He said, oh, yes, that's right. I remember meeting you. Well, come on in. Come on in. So we go into the crystal shop and looking around and seeing what a nice place he had. And he said, so what are you guys up to? What's going on with you? We said, well, we're leaving town. You know, we were going to go crystal digging today, but the conditions are bad. I mean, it has stopped raining now, but it was so much rain, you know, it's bound to be muddy and horrible for digging. So we're leaving. And he said, what are you talking about? We're leaving town. The conditions aren't good for crystal digging. He said, no. The conditions today are ideal for crystal digging. We said, it is? He said, sure. He said, it rained hard, but it didn't rain very long. If there's any crystals lying near the surface, the rain has washed the dust off them, the dirt off them, and with the sun coming out, they'll sparkle, and you'll find those even easier than ever. He said, also, everybody else thinks it's bad conditions. You may be the only person at that crystal mine. You'll have it all to yourself. So we thought, okay, great. So he gave us a place to change in his restroom, and we drove back to the crystal mine, and indeed did have a great day of digging up crystals. And boy, we needed some. We were few. We only had a few thousand. We needed another 200. So we went, had a great day of digging. Okay, now it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're done. Well, the plan was to spend that night in Hot Springs and leave the next morning. But why should we? You know, our feeling was, shouldn't we just go ahead and head towards St. Louis? The car's packed, crystals in the car, we've got a place here to change. Let's just head that direction. So that's what our sense told us to do. We headed that direction and wound up all the way in Memphis, Tennessee. We got a great evening experience in Memphis, Tennessee. Got up the next morning, and only then did it dawn on us that, hey, you know, we are now 3 hours closer to St. Louis than we would have been under our original plan. Getting there for lunch was a breeze, no problem to get to that place to have lunch. And then we had so much time left over, we were able to go to all the shops and arts and crafts that were in that village, which we didn't expect to be able to do. So, what I'm getting at here, was the rain a bad thing? No, actually, because of that rain, we were blessed in many ways. We still got to go crystal digging. We had an interesting evening in Memphis, which we would not have ordinarily had. We got to the restaurant with plenty of time left over to visit all the shops there. So the rain was not a bad thing. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. You might be thinking that Carol and I had a plan, and the plan was to have an outdoor activity, and God said, oh, I know what'll make this plan better. Make it rain. No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't know why it rained. It rained because that's what rain does. It rained. What's important about this story is how Carol and I responded to the rain. Now, admittedly, when it started raining, we didn't jump up and down for joy saying, hooray, this must be for our higher good. No, we were disappointed. We said, this can't be good, but, whatever. But we didn't judge it too harshly. And more importantly, we didn't act rashly on whatever judgments about that rain we were having. Instead, we continued to do what you always want to do, just follow your guidance every step of the way. Don't react rashly. Don't go from ego or fear. Try to sense what is that feeling? What is my next right step in this moment? So that's what we did. And you may think that anybody would do that, and maybe most of you would, but me, I tell you what, in a former life, before I became the flow master, okay, well, I'm still working on that, but in a previous way of being, that is not how that circumstance would have occurred. Everything would have happened up to us getting in the car, and we're heading down the road, and Carol would have said, let's stop at that crystal shop, and I would have said, why? We know what crystals look like, and they're not open. Down the road we would have went, missing all the blessings, and not arriving in time, by the way, to go to the restaurant or that village. So the moral of this whole story that I've told is that everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you perceive it that way, and even more importantly, act on your divine guidance every step of the way. Now, I know that's a little story, little in the fact that, okay, so what? I planned an outdoor activity and it rained. That's kind of a minor thing. But a lot of things that happen in life aren't too minor, are they? There are bigger things that happen to us that we might perceive rashly and hastily and label as bad. Remember when I talked about that little example of people getting laid off? I got laid off in 2001. I was 51 years old. I had had a 30-year career as an advertising writer. And I did not jump up and down for joy when that happened, saying, hey, this must be for my higher good. But I did spend some time in contemplation and reflection. What should I do? I mean, I was very concerned. Advertising is a younger person's field, generally. Even if I could find another job at my age, which I probably could have, the pay, they would never have paid me what the salary that I had gotten up to at that point. And I was thinking, if I don't have that kind of pay, how am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? But in spite of those fears, I tried to set them aside, not judge too harshly. And one day, I had this thought. It just kind of popped into my head. Well, maybe now this would be a good opportunity to write that book, Row, Row, Row Your Boat, that I've been wanting to do for a while. And I got to tell you, friends, when I had that thought, or that thought occurred to me, is a better way to put it, I had this bolt of electricity, or I don't know what you want to call it, some kind of energetic thing start in my feet and just bolt up to my whole body, through my head. My whole body and mind were just alive with enthusiasm for that idea. I have never felt that enthusiastic or sure about anything in my life that is what I am here to do. That is what my spirit is saying. Yes, yes, despite your fears, this is what you need to do. And there were some fears. It takes a while to write a book. I need income during that time. Where's that going to come from? Well, friends, the universe bent over backwards to support me financially while I wrote it. It led me to my publisher. It led me to my first speaking engagements, all effortlessly. It really was in the flow. So it really was a blessing. My layoff turned out to be a blessing because I didn't judge it too harshly and continued to follow my guidance every step of the way. So yes, everything, even that, a layoff, can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you perceive it that way and follow your guidance. However, I do want to point out one little thing I said about everything being a stepping stone. I said everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good. I didn't say everything is a stepping stone to your higher good. Now, this can be argued theologically. I, for one, though, however, believe in free will. And my personal definition for free will is the freedom to ignore divine guidance. No one's forcing you to do anything. The guidance is there. You don't have to do it. But don't you think, over time, if you continue to ignore your guidance, if you continue to ignore what God says, what your heart says, what your intuition says over and over and over again, don't you think there might be a consequence to that? Don't you think you might wind up somewhere where the divine never intended you to be? And is it also possible that other people who are not following their divine guidance to a large degree can do something that has a ripple effect that affects your life? How many people in here in 2008 were affected by the ripple effect of people in the mortgage and banking industry making some decisions out of greed, not from their heart? They knew what they were doing. They were kicking the can down the road. I guess they knew eventually it could all fall apart. But they just went for the short-term gain and ignored, I'm sure, what their heart was telling them to do, which was not that. So there can be a ripple effect to those things, and meaning to me that these things that happen in life, not everything happens for a divine reason. And one of the funniest things I've ever seen on Facebook is there was a photograph of a sign next to a building, and it's one of those signs that is, not only is the sign movable, but the letters on it are movable. And it was written, "Everything happens for a reason." And then underneath that it said, "Sometimes the reason is you are making some really bad decisions." Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes the reason is you are making some really bad decisions. Now, I did begin to think, after I got laid off, I always like to know why. Oh, why did this happen? You know, what did I have to do with it? Why was I chosen to be laid off and not this guy? So I thought about that a little while. I want to share that with you because there's something interesting about this, my whole layoff situation. First of all, the reason there were layoffs occurring in the first place was a direct ripple effect of 9/11. Direct effect. One of our biggest clients, in fact, the biggest client we had in our advertising agency was American Airlines. And when their planes got used for this destruction, they called the next day, maybe, and said, "We're not going to advertise for about 2 years. We're going to cut all advertising for 2 years." That was a huge blow to our agency's income, and there had to be some staffing cuts. So why was I chosen? Well, actually, that was kind of a logical choice. I was making a very high salary, but also I had really gotten involved in the Unity Church there. I was teaching classes there. I was really into that, and my superior knew that. He knew that even though I was giving 100% to advertising, and I was a very good writer and creative director, they wanted 150% from me. They wanted me to eat, sleep, and dream it, and he knew that I wasn't doing that, that I had half my interest was in my spiritual activities. So maybe partly my behavior was responsible. And then there's this. The Sunday before I got laid off, we went to church, Carol and I, and we had a guest speaker that day, Christopher Ian Chenoweth. Do any of you know him? Has he been here? He used to be, I believe, the director of Silent Unity for a long time. He founded PositiveChristianity.org, and I think his main activity now is leading spiritual cruises out of Galveston, Texas. Not sure about that, but I think that's what he does. So anyway, he was there, and he was doing something on, he called Power Prayer. And what he wanted everybody to do in attendance was write down their top 5 desires, and he was going to pray with us over those for 30 days to see what would happen. Well, what did I put at the very top of my list? Segue out of my advertising career into a more spiritually based career. 5 days later, laid off. Of course, my thought was, God, I'm not so sure you understand what segue means. Segue, not direct cut. Anyhow. So, yes, you know, everything may not happen for a divine reason. I mean, maybe it was divine that I got laid off. Maybe not. Who knows why or what's responsible? It doesn't make any difference. It never makes a difference. Wherever you are, whatever is happening, why you think it's happening, why it's not happening, it doesn't make any difference, because everything may not happen for a divine reason, but with the help of the divine, something good can always come from everything that happens. I'll say that again. Everything may not happen for a divine reason, but with the help of the divine, something good can come from everything that happens. Or to go back to what I was saying earlier, everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you perceive it that way. Everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you choose to dream a different dream. Or, if you really want to go back to the more esoteric meaning of life is but a dream, everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you choose to wake up from any dream you might be having and embrace the one true reality of life, the reality of God in your life, the reality of God's goodness in your life, the reality of God's grace in your life, and the reality of God's guidance in your life. Thank you. Now, I'd like to do a guided meditation based on the very last thing I said, the reality of God in your life, the one true reality. So let's prepare for a meditation. Take a few moments to just center yourself in your seats, relax. Take a few deep breaths. Put away all reflections on the past and all projections into the future, and just relax in the serenity and the tranquility of the here and now moment. And now, in this more peaceful and present state of awareness, I would like you to picture something with me. I would like you to imagine a bright, white, liquid light flowing down from the heavens above and caressing you with its soothing touch. Feel its loving embrace as it slowly flows onto the top of your head, down the sides of your face, across your shoulders and down your arms. Like a nice warm bath, it washes away the tensions of both body and mind, relaxing every fiber of your being as it slowly flows down your chest, down your back, across your pelvis, down your thighs, down your calves, and eventually past the tips of your toes. As you find yourself completely enveloped in the warm embrace of this bright, white, loving light, all of your worldly cares and concerns vanish. Your body is at rest, your mind is at peace, and even your soul is soothed. And now, I would like you to shift your attention within, to the center of your being, to the core of your being, to your heart space, to that space within you, some say, is the residence of your spirit, of your soul, of your higher self. And picture that heart space glowing with the same bright white light that's flowing around you. Picture that bright white light beginning to grow and expand, filling your entire chest area. Visualize that bright white, loving light growing and expanding, filling your entire torso. And continue to see it growing and expanding, moving into your arms, moving into your legs, filling you with its warmth and love. And continue to see it growing and expanding further still until it reaches your feet, your hands, and fills your head as well with this bright, white, loving light. Your inner body is now glowing from head to toe with this bright white light as it continues to expand through your skin, merging with the bright white light that's around you. And now you see that there is no place really where you end and the world around you begins. There is no place where you end and the person next to you begins. There is no place where this congregation ends and the world around this church begins. There's no place on earth that is separated from another. In fact, the entire universe and all universes and all dimensions within all universes are all infused and pervaded by this same bright, white, loving light. this bright white energy that is love, that is creativity, that is intelligence. There is only this vast sea of bright white, creative, intelligent energy that is love, that is God. The only true reality at the base of everything we perceive is the energy of God. It's the energy, the light, the love in which we move and have our being, sustaining us and giving life to everything that exists, and giving existence to everything that exists. And in this sea of bright white divine light, you see that your mind is an individual point of consciousness within that sea of light. And there is no separation where your consciousness ends and the consciousness of another begins. We are all joined together as individual expressions of the one divine mind. That is God. That is all. That is the true reality beneath everything. Take a moment now just to feel and to sense this universal and unifying field of divine love, creativity, and intelligence, infusing everything, joining everything. The reality that is free of a world of opposites, of separation and contrast. Take a moment now just to sense the oneness of it all. And now, as you slowly begin to return your awareness to this time and this place, when you open your physical eyes, yes, you will once again see a world of contrast, a world of opposites, a world of separation. You are here, that person is there. But as you open your physical eyes, keep your spiritual eye open as well and see beneath all that the unity that is God, infusing everything with its love, creativity, intelligence. See everything as it truly is, the one reality of God's goodness, guidance, and grace constantly at work in our lives. And so it is.